Welcome, everyone. This is the First Star Scholar Advisory Committee podcast. I'm your moderator, Addie.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Eve.
All right, let's get started on our final, unfortunately, episode of this series on leadership and community impact. All right, how are we feeling? How are we feeling, ladies, today?
Feeling pretty good.
Feeling pretty good? All right. Let's dive into the first question. Let's just talk about our leadership style and our development right now. How would you describe your leadership style?
I feel like I've always been someone who was very, very bossy. Like over the summer during our summer camp, we did a project called the Clifton Strength Project, and one of my strengths was one of the ones that's just really bossy. And that's just how I've always been. So I'm definitely a leader who right now I do try to back off a little bit, but I've always been someone who's at the top trying to do all the work while making sure other people do work.
I feel like I can relate to that a little bit because I have a need to want to do it on my own. Even when it comes with working with other people, that need to no, I need to get this done. This is or I need to have something done exactly the way that I picture it in my mind. So I've typically am the one that's kind of more upfront with it, very voicey about my opinions.
And so thinking about, your leadership style, how do you think being in First Star has impacted or has it impacted your leadership style?
For me, being in First Star has definitely impacted my leadership style because I was never really open to letting other people just being in group settings because I've never been a good group worker, but through First Star we've done many group projects, and pretty much every time we meet up we do something as a group to learn just how to work together as a team, and that sense of teamwork has definitely made me less bossy towards a big setting.
I think for me, it's definitely helped it develop in certain ways because for on my Saturday sessions, a lot of times we will choose a topic like budgeting or something like that, and it'll teach you how to go about that. And just for your personal life, how you should take leadership in certain aspects of your life to, develop them and just better them.
So what I'm hearing is, I feel like we're all kind of similar in a sense where we jump into that leadership role. Do you feel that, being in foster care has sort of impacted or has shaped you to kind of jump into situations, or how do you feel like your foster care experience has impacted your leadership style? And, even through the adversity, that you face, do you ever feel that you need to hinder your leadership style? How do you feel it has affected your leadership style?
Through foster care, it has definitely affected my leadership style because before foster care, I was one of the youngest in my family because there was 7 kids and I was number 5, but I was always bossing everybody around, even if they were 8 years older than me. So I've always been bossy, but through foster care, me being an older sibling to younger foster siblings, I've had to be more not as bossy and more just patient with younger kids, teaching them how to clean up after themselves and things like that. So it's that foster care has definitely taught me to be more patient with the way I lead people.
I think for me, foster care, it's kind of it goes both ways for me. So in some aspects, because I didn't have control of what was happening with my life, I had this need to be bossy and be assertive over the things that I could control and the things that I had to say over. But then in other aspects, just certain things that I went through in the foster system with certain foster families kind of caused me to kind of go into myself, if that makes sense, kind of be quieter about certain parts of me.
Yes, I definitely completely understand that.
Wow, powerful. it kind of sparked another question relating to, our experiences, in foster care, in our leadership styles. How do you feel you were able to kind of find your voice? Because, right now, you guys are speaking with such like power and enthusiasm, and I definitely don't see you guys, like lowering your voices. Like, how do you feel like you found your voice within, the your experiences in care?
I guess I've talked about like things that are like small, like teaching like other kids how to do things, and I haven't really like talked about how my leadership style affected my advocacy about certain things, but it was definitely much quieter than I feel like other kids were. Like I felt like I had to be quiet because like I felt like I didn't have any type of control over it, so there was no point in saying anything. And now like now that I'm in like first star and I'm able to see that I can make a difference, my voice has definitely gotten like a lot louder with things that have a deeper meaning. So like I'm much more willing to stand up for people, and I'm
Mm.
much more willing to like talk about something that I'm passionate about, like just women's rights or like trans rights. I'm much more passionate about those things now that I actually have a voice.
I think for me, one of like when I was younger, when I was like probably in like elementary school, I had no problem being that kid who was like, yeah, I'm gonna get adopted. Like I was no problem. But my foster parents would always be like, no, don't say that, don't say that. And in the back of my mind, I always knew that there was something that like, well, why should I be ashamed of it? There's nothing to be ashamed of. So that kind of sparked the thing of like, there's other people out there that can relate to me and that can use it. Because like another example is when me and my sister were going through some stuff with one of the like my adoptive family that I was with at the time, she kind of like paved the path of how to get out of a dangerous situation. And if I hadn't seen her, pave the path and kind of be that voice and be that example, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I think between that desire to always, be vocal about it and then seeing it exemplified, kind of like mixed together and fueled something.
Mm. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I think going back to leadership and that community impact, there is a certain level of maturity that, we've had to face and we've had to develop because of situations we couldn't control. And, having those positive, role models, whether it's, First Star, or, maybe it's one of, our families, um, or any positive role models, that community impact is, I feel for me, is important when developing, leadership, because, we're on this podcast, right? But we're also like young people. We're still developing our voices, and we always have that power to change and to build on this voice. It's not just this is the say all be all. We're constantly evolving, and so now I want to segue into thinking about our leadership style, as a collective on this podcast. How do you feel we were able to collaborate to make this a successful platform together?
I guess like we all let each other have our own strong voices. And like with you, you were just like such an amazing person to be a moderator because you always encourage people to like continue talking. Like if someone didn't like step up, like when you thought they could like add something important to the conversation, you would like ask them, do you want to add something? Just to like encourage people. And you encourage like just a lot of people throughout this podcast, and you have a really powerful voice.
I think like one of the biggest things with this podcast and how we've been able to develop is like everybody has a common goal and everybody has a different perspective. And I think like today in society, it's so hard for other people to hear other people's perspective. But I think for us, because we're all able to listen, recognize, and then support each other with different perspectives, and just like I said, that common goal, because we're all able to do that, it's created such like a family. And I think that's definitely helped us develop in different ways, as in like Addie, you stepping up as moderator, Alex, you kind of being the one that's always on, like, okay, this is some good questions. This is a good schedule to follow. This is like, I think we've just seen everybody step up in a way that I feel like wouldn't have been when we first started.
You guys are so special to me. I just want to say that I definitely have seen you guys, each of you, evolve into your leadership, whether it be, I feel like maybe we were holding back, maybe we were just we were trying to assess the situation, who are we talking to? We met day one, So it's not like we have years of history together, but I feel like within this like short amount of time, and I also feel just with our experiences in being in foster care, I feel like personally, I felt like ashamed to like even say, I'm in foster care. That was never something I wanted to just highlight about myself. Now, if someone asks me, yeah, I was, and it's a part of me. It's something, we don't choose, but we do choose, if that makes sense. In that, I personally believe, we don't necessarily choose like our biological family. We don't choose the situation we're brought up to, but at the end of the day, we do get to decide what communities we want to be a part of. And that's so powerful because we each chose to be a part of this platform together. And like you were saying, Eve, like we all had this common goal, whether we realize it or not, we're creating this impact. And just being able to connect with you all viewers watching us and seeing our journeys together, I think that's the most beautiful part about being on this podcast with you all. And yeah, so I just wanted to applaud you both, because as much as I can just moderate the conversation, this is really like made possible because of like your value like input, Eve, whether that's, I feel like you have a really good way of just saying something, and like I'm just speechless, and I'm just like, I need to print this on my wall or something. And then, Alex, coming in with, hey, what questions are we asking? Like always coming up with those good questions. And I'm like, yes, let me add that. Let me add that. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. And so as we wrap up, our final episode together for this series, what is one take home message that you want to bring with you to share?
I feel like through this podcast, like we've always worked on a goal of like informing others of our situations and like what it's like to just like go through what we went through, but still come out on top like we have, and like still come out as leaders. Because like through this podcast, we have shown that we are leaders, even though our voice was silenced. So I feel like a takeaway of this podcast for anyone watching it, like anyone at all, is just to like never underestimate yourself because of the situation that you've been put into. Like let yourself grow, no matter like if your situation is an amazing one, let yourself grow bigger. If it's a bad one, continue to let yourself grow big.
Yes.
I think that was a really, really powerful message. And I think if there was one thing, like I'm talking to other people, but I'm also talking to my younger self. Like when I say this is like a lot of like this podcast, and you're talking about it, or you're referencing certain things that you went through. It kind of reminds me of like, what would that little 7-year-old girl have needed? And like I feel like I'd want to tell people that there may be moments that you just don't know what to do, and you're just at a point where you're like, how am I supposed to get through this? What am I supposed to do? What steps? And I think it's going to sound so cliche, but just remember to breathe, and just remember that there is always that light at the end of the tunnel. And like every single person on this podcast that's participated is an example of that. somebody that was there in that moment and has come out stronger and has come out as a leader and has a lot of things going for the life and just very strong passions. And I think that's very encouraging. But just remember that sometimes you have to allow yourself to feel those negative things that you're going through in order to feel the positive and in order to appreciate the happiness and just the good that comes out of life.
Yes, that is absolutely
Oh
beautiful.
my goodness. Oh,
And then,
I think it made me like a speaker or like some
yes.
sort of like governor. Like you are meant for the stage, girl. You are meant. Oh my goodness. I'm like thinking like, what would my 7-year-old self, looking back on myself like, wow, each of you should be so proud of yourselves. Like seriously. Sorry, I don't mean to scream, but I'm just
You're
so
good.
happy. Um, Wow, I think I almost like cried. That was just so beautiful. And you know what? Like it doesn't stop. One, these hurdles, like I feel like they're meant to be put in our path for a reason. We're constantly being tested, we're constantly being tugged. Is this going to be the moment where, yeah, we throw our hands in the air, you know, or is this the moment where we can stand above those challenges, but also like allowing ourselves the space to breathe and the space to feel exactly what we're feeling and not to criticize the feelings or compare the feelings, because they're valid. If we're angry, we're angry. Of course there are appropriate measures of displaying them, but at the end of the day, releasing those emotions instead of building them is something like that I wish I would have. Honestly, I don't take anything back that I've done, but I think moving forward, I think they're allowing yourself to really just feel and know that it's okay to feel like sometimes I feel like I need to numb myself. I feel like I had to put on my armor. I had to put on, my big sister suit and not cry, not, show that, I was a human. But, in reality, they're going to come out one way or another. And so having that supportive like network, I think is just so important. And, growing as an individual and just learning to love and appreciate yourself and your environment as best as you can is something that no one can take away from you as much as they can take away everything. You've got your bag. They can take away anything, but they can't take away who you are in the inside. And just never forget, Eve saying like that little child, that free spirit within you, it still lives within you. um, and maybe you need some support to reach that child within you, but it's always going to be there. um, wow. I just want to thank you all.
I think what you were talking about when like, how you felt like you had to mask your feelings. I think for me, like going through certain situations, it was always being told like, no, you can't feel this. And I was a kid because I didn't understand what was going on. I just acted out. Like when I got angry, I just acted out. And like I didn't understand how to healthily
Mm,
like communicate that. But like I also didn't understand that it was okay to feel a negative emotion because you're so often told like, no, you can't be angry, no, you can't be upset, like you just got to move on. Like when you're
right,
being taken from one house to another, you're just like,
right.
oh, okay, all right, now I just have to move on, pick up my entire life, move
Yeah.
away from everything I know, that you get so used to. It's also, I think that's another thing, is it's so hard to break the pattern of getting
Mm,
so used to just like just moving, and you're just like, I think so often, even now, something I can struggle with is not detaching from people because you're so used to having to just move
mm,
on and move on. And it's hard to, when you're going through that situation of going to multiple houses, if you're still holding on to a previous home, it's hard to be okay at this next home. So eventually you just develop a pattern of, I'm shoving all these emotions down because they're negative and I don't want to miss this person or that
mm.
situation. So you just get so like almost like a robot that's just always on go.
Hmm.
Yes, exactly, Eve. Like the 70 emotions down is like such a big thing in foster care. I feel like almost every kid experiences that because you're always told that you shouldn't have like anger issues and things like that because like you have a home. There's other kids in a worse situation who don't. So like your feelings are always compared and therefore like invalidated.
Right.
Then you have to like bottle up your feelings and act as if you don't have them. So I feel like the whole bottling up situation is just such a big deal because it can cause so much stuff. So like just throughout foster care, like I feel like being able to express your emotions correctly, either through just like talking to family, talking to friends, even if it's like not a constant thing, is very important. And like also the thing that Eve mentioned, like a feeling of detachment. I have been in the same home for 3 years and still I detach myself from my entire family for long periods of time because I don't understand that like I can be attached to them forever and I don't have to like back out so
Mhm.
I don't get hurt again. So like it's just that continuous feeling of like just not being safe all the time that
Mhm.
is like it's just a cycle.
And
Yeah,
I
and
feel like it's such a hard cycle to try and break because there's times you don't even realize it's happening. Like it
mm,
can be someone that I'm like close with and I'll just like get tired of them because I'm so used to not having constant people in my life. So
Yeah.
then I'll just detach and then you're like, "Oh crap, what am I doing?"
Like you just like honestly, I've had the same friend for like 2 years now, and it's very hard to keep that like same friendship going because I've never had a friend that long. Like all of
mm,
my friends have grown up with these same exact people in their whole entire lives. So they like none of them understand that it's so hard for me to keep friendship strong and just not back away because like I just don't want to get that attached and I'm just not used to having long friendships.
wow, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack. And yeah, I thank you for bringing that up because, oftentimes I feel like we often feel the need to fix this habit, right? This habit that we've labeled, or not necessarily that we have labeled, but society has labeled as bad, because of what they see on the outside doesn't really they it's not easily interpreted on what's actually happening on the inside, that we associate these behaviors as bad, and good and bad. Oh, this is the right way. We're constantly having to compare ourselves to other people because this is how society this is what the society is brought up to. But you know I feel like personally going through this experience has allowed me to be more compassionate towards the young people that I interact with, whether that's so I'm a tutor, and there are times when certain children will like shut down, and like I'll just notice it, and instead of blaming them for that behavior, oh, why are you acting out, putting a blame, putting a negative connotation to what they're doing on the outside. Hey, what's going on? Maybe they're not comfortable saying that, and that's totally valid. Not everyone isn't open, wants to share their emotions, and maybe they've went through something where they've had to close down, and that's just who they are, and just the acceptance of who we are, no matter what we've been through, no matter how we display these feelings, because they're going to come out, like they're all valid. And you both are just so special to me because it's you're just so young, and you have so much wisdom that I'm also learning from you too. That yeah, it's a constant journey. And just I just hope that for me, I'm listening to myself too, just that patience, just being patient with yourself, taking it one step at a time, allowing yourself to feel, for real, just allowing yourself. So thank you. I'm just so blessed. I'm so proud of you both.
Like once again, you're just being an amazing leader because like you truly do encourage like everything we do and how we act. And you're showing how you do that in your everyday life outside of this podcast through tutoring. So, like, I feel like your leadership style is very strong.
It's like very encouraging though. I can it's like a role model. Like I can look up to you and I can see like this is somebody that I want to be for somebody else, but this is also somebody that I want to be or that I feel like I needed for myself.
Hmm.
Yes, you're
Also,
just such a big role model.
oh my gosh. Thank you. You're so, oh my gosh. I feel like we're just constantly going back, like, this is you, this is you. But really, I think it's just, I see the leadership in you and you bring it out in me. And I think that's why this platform is just so strong, is that we really are here to uplift one another. We're really
Yes,
listen. Yeah.
and that is why I think that this should continue for so long. Like,
Thank
Stop
you.
saying.
I feel like this should never stop.
So,
No.
Has had to stop. I feel like that might stop happening, and that's a very negative thing. We don't want that to stop.
no.
Because I feel like we've all learned, like, I think even just now exemplified how the encouragement can bring out leadership. And I think that's a good thing to continue to cultivate.
Like
Yes.
being a part of this in my everyday life really like shows me that I can be a leader. And honestly, I'm afraid that if we don't have this podcast anymore, I'll lose those skills.
Good point. Yes. We're manifesting. This is not the last time you're going to be hearing from us. This might be the last of this series, but there are many more to come. So
Many
stay tuned. All right. Well, thank you so much. And that closes our final podcast episode of the series.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Thank you guys. Bye.
As a victim of the foster care system, I find that foster care reform is a subject that has been looked over for far too long. So I want to raise awareness by asking one question: who is willing to break the silence?